hours and hours.
Yeah, I think those chillers cost, what, about $15 or $20?
At the
I'm
most,
sorry,
yeah.
the aerators.
Yeah,
I've seen them everywhere from the local bait shop and the places that cater to ice fishermen to Walmarts. And of course, there are plenty of them available online.
and at the pet store.
Could be there too. The other thing that I would add is that if you anticipate you're going to have your fish in the cooler for, say, more than 45 minutes or an hour, you may want to put some freezer packs in there, or have some to use when the temperature starts to warm up. Sometimes teachers have the release as the final activity of an afternoon that starts with various other kinds of things like macroinvertebrate collecting and identifying, and stream speed measurement and stuff like that. So it can be the case that you might have them in the cooler for 2.5 hours. In that case, you want to have some supplemental ice to dump in there periodically, and probably want to monitor the temperature so that it stays more or less in the target vicinity of whatever you're working with, 50 degrees, 55 degrees, depending on the time of year.
My thought is,
So-
if you're near, Joe, my thought is, if you're near the stream, why not just dump the stream water in there?
Sure, yeah, some people like to do that to temper, gives the fish the opportunity to adjust to the
Yeah.
other components of the water, the minerality, the pH, that sort of thing.
Also
Right.
temperature.
Good
Yep.
point, Bob. Bob Weibel has joined us. Matt Buck has as well. And just one last comment, Nicole. If you want help, if you want volunteers, give a holler. And
Okay.
I would say see what's available within your school community in the way of other teachers and people who might. We've seen a lot of instances where the principal wants to turn out for this event, kind of a good opportunity to take some nice pictures. But if you strike out close to home, then reach out to your regional coordinator, who in your case is me, and I'll see who I can rustle up to help you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Valerie.
I just had a quick question, because my little fish are looking not so little anymore. Do we need a different, do I need a different food? The food is looking awful small for them.
You might. When we first started this program, the hatchery actually gave us 3 types of food, from what's called the mash, which is very fine, up through things that were like 32nd of an inch pellets. And few of our schools ever got to the 3rd coarseness of food. Most of them never left the mash. So we kind of moved away from that, and for the last several years, 5-6 years, we've been using just the finest food coarseness. But this year I did get the 2nd tier food from the Pittsford hatchery, and I have a couple of pounds of that in the barn. I just dropped off some food for Amy Clapp, and if any of you need additional food or want to try this somewhat coarser 2nd grade, let me know. Give me a mailing address, and I'll ship a Ziploc bag of that to you. If anybody has fish that are getting to be 2.5 inches long, and that has happened in the past. I think one of our Tiffany Tucker once had fish that were approaching 3 inches. We should almost certainly get you the 3rd or 4th grade sizing of the food. And that the hatchery is not too far away from me. I can pick some up and again, ship that out to you. But let me know if you'd like it.
Thank you.
So Valerie, what are your fish looking like?
They look great. And they look hungry. Like their mouths are way too big for these little pieces. But they're the biggest that I've had in the last time. I've only done it twice. But they're the biggest ones that I've had, and we've
Great.
still got growing time to grow. So,
Yep.
and they're really healthy. You know, I was worried because we had a rocky start there with my chiller and all of that, but they settled right in and they're just great. The kids are drawing them and writing about them, and we're just having a lovely
Fantastic.
time.
The Trout in the Classroom program is, from my point of view, built on the Salmon in the Classroom program, which preceded it, sometimes referred to as the Adopt a Salmon program. And that program never really raised the temperature much, and was pretty inclined to get the fish through the whole season before they were released without ever having to feed them. And I've always argued that our approach, and I think Bob Weibel had as much to do with this as anyone, of raising the temperature into the 50s so that it accelerates their activity level, their growth, is much better as a learning opportunity, because you see their behaviors start to change, their appearance changes dramatically. You know, they become much more colorful, and the variegation in their outer covering is quite interesting. So I think it's fun for us all, especially the kids, to see these changes that take place as they become fingerlings.
Joe, I have a question. What should our tank temperature be then? Mine is about 45.
Wow.
Somebody want to weigh in on that?
You bet. 52.
I would agree. And that's probably about the temperature the streams will be when you release them. Maybe, you know, if you release them late, they might be 55.
Are they feeding very much at 45?
I don't really see them eating. I mean,
Yeah.
I put the food in,
Yeah.
but they're moving. And I don't know, they must absorb the food somehow because they're growing.
Yeah, but I would take it up a couple steps to
Okay.
52, take it up to 48, and then jump it to 52 the next day. And I think you're going to see them be a lot more active as far as eating and that type of thing.
Okay.
The 45 is just on the hairy edge of that they won't eat, no matter how much food you give them. If you give them beefsteak, they don't care.
Thank you.
So take them up. Yep.
So Rudy just sent a chat message. Kim, did you see that? It's a suggestion of someone at Fish and Wildlife who might be of service to you. Now, Melissa, could you talk a little bit about how you and your class engages with Smoky House?
Sure. We went to Smoky House last week, 2 weeks ago, before vacation, and completed a whole stream study before releasing the trout, and kids found spots that they thought were great release points based on, you know, what they have learned about the ideal habitat. We did all the chemistry of the water, and we did a macroinvertebrate study. So we were at our stream site basically all day with Smoky House staff who sort of guided us to where to go. But basically it was our school staff, our team, and some other teachers in the school that went with us.
And Smoky House is a not-for-profit environmental education program. Is that correct?
Yes,
And it's in Danby, I think.
yes, correct.
So most of you probably don't have an organization like that in your area, but some of you may have that. And I think Melissa's school essentially contracts with them for a certain amount of programming on site. And in their case, Smoky House has personnel who are environmental educators who get personally involved as well, as I recall.
In the past years, not this year. They don't have the staff to do it this year. So it was more
Oh, okay.
our staff that did it. And they just lent us the facility to use bathrooms and have a place to meet and talk between going out to the stream and then back.
So Rudy's organization, White River Partnership, provides analogous programming and more in his part of the world. And, you know, we are probably going to be forging some form of a partnership with VINS, which is also in the eastern side of the state. But to the extent that there are these other organizations, I would add Monshire, the Echo Center in Burlington. If they're close to your geography, you probably will find that they have highly qualified staff who could visit your school and work with your kids on some occasions. Tori, did you have comments you want to make or questions you want to ask?
Yeah, I don't have too many questions. I have 20 trout that are doing pretty good. I feel like that's good, at least. Since we took them out of the basket, we still have them all and they're big and fat and healthy looking. So the kids are excited. We're going to keep them, we're going to release them pretty close to the school. So we're going to keep them probably till pretty close to the very end of the year if we can. And I don't know, I'm just now starting to brainstorm some other things that we can do that day and turn it into like a full day event, because I don't think we're gonna have to travel very far. So we'll pack a lunch and I'll figure out some different things to do.
Yeah, as I recall, you can release it in a stream that's within walking distance, right?
Right.
That's a wonderful opportunity. I would say maybe about half of our schools are in that situation, and it's really nice not to have to worry about buses and all of that stuff. Plus, it forms a connection for the kids to that habitat, and
Right.
they can visit the fish on their own once in future weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
The manual has a whole section on release day, but I would also invite you to take a look at some of the videos that you can find online. I've got a number of them on our Vermont TIC website, but most of those were put there 3-4 years ago. I'm sure in the meantime, there's another 20 or 30 release videos that I haven't captured yet.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited. I've been scoping out some spots and I would really love to get the kids in the water, obviously. So I don't know. I've just been thinking about different needs for that, for 21,
Yeah.
12-year-olds to get into the water actually. But I don't know. It's my first year. So maybe over time I'll collect some more like materials, I guess, to help kids with that. But for this year, I don't know, might be a little messy.
What grade are they?
6th grade.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna find it's gonna hard to keep them out of the water.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I know. When I was scouting with my husband, he's like, "Oh, this is a great place." And I was like, "Yeah, well, it's a great place for us. It's not a great place for 21 kids to be like diving into the mud." So we had to keep looking.
Yeah.
That's
what
exactly
we
the
do.
tricky part that we've been up against is that balance between, it's nice if you can find a shallow section of stream that's shallow for a good stretch, because
Right.
there's gonna be the ones that want to go swimming.
Yeah, and I don't mind. I think we'll just have to bring some junk sneakers or something, but we might have to use the little stream that goes right into the Wells River, because the Wells River really is not very small where the school is. So I've got to look. I'll give time for the water to go down too and check again. But yeah, I was here to listen and get any ideas and stuff. I don't know what this first year is going to look like, but it's been really great. Some of the kids love it, and some of the kids pretend not to care about it or really don't care about it. But it's been really good. I convinced a colleague of mine from Newbury, Vermont, is going to try to do it next year. So I was giving her some information. So I just am very happy and thankful for all the help and support that you guys give the teachers too.
Yeah, go get the temperature of the water about 5 days to a week before, and then start to adjust your tank up to that a little bit.
Okay.
That'll help. But yeah, I mean, these kids are gonna love it, being in the water, finding macro invertebrates and all that type of thing.
Right.
And as Rudy suggested, from my point of view, less is more. A really small brook can work just fine and be much safer, and actually a more appropriate environment for these little fish we're putting out there.
Yeah.
So when oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Please. No, go.
When I received the letter from I think it was Vermont State Fish and Wildlife, just confirming that I was getting the eggs, they recommended releasing in the Tenny Brook, which I'm not familiar with because I'm not from around this area. But I think that's pretty close to Northeast. So do you think that's a good spot for us to do it? We obviously would have to take a bus, which is fine. We can do that.
Definitely. It's just about perfect.
Okay.
And in fact, do you know where Rotary Park is?
No.
Well, it's just west of your school. If you were
Okay.
to be driving north on Route 7,
Okay.
there's a little shopping area called Tenny Brook Market.
Oh, yeah, I know where that is.
And just south of there is Rotary Park on the west
Okay.
side of Route 7. And it's a perfect place to park the bus. It's safe. There's no traffic. There's a large, expansive lawn that you can gather on and have other types of activities. And the brook flows right along the edge of it.
Okay,
So
perfect.
I think that would be a great option for you.
All right, great.
I also wanted to share, this book is wonderful. It's called Trout Are Made of Trees, the little paperback picture book. And I read that to the kids the day that we released. We were in the woods and I read it. It's just a nice summary of the whole picture, because it talks about habitat and what they eat and their life cycle. So if you're looking for, a simple activity, it's a great book. So Trout Are Made of Trees.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that, Kim. The other thing that I would say in response to your comments, Tori, is that the one thing that you want to think about is where and when you release your trout in view of what your kids are going to be doing in the water after they've released their trout. So one of the reasons it works well to release your trout last is that they can be in there collecting macroinvertebrates and doing other things. And there are no little fingerlings in the water, no fry. But if you release your trout first, they're going to be tromping around, maybe on top of your poor little fry. So if you're going to do it early, then make sure you take the kids away from that stretch of the river where the fish have just been released and do your other in-stream work somewhere else, or just deal with it by having them release their fish last. Matt, thanks for joining us. I know you had another meeting. What's on your mind?
Oh, thanks. Well, I had this is just like a general thing. I teach 5th grade science, and I've got about 45 kids. It's just a general. I'm in Norwich, Vermont, over that way. And our trout are doing great. They're right there. It's 63 of them remaining. But about release day, anytime I do River Day, I will say just general teacher stuff. I totally order waterproof paper because it makes any planning go so
good.
it's worth the investment compared to like, I don't tell the kids that because otherwise they will test the strength of waterproof paper, but like waterproof paper makes work in the stream and on the banks, like it makes it so much better instead of carrying extra.
Never have thought of that.
It's
Cool.
spectacular. Like it looks like copy paper. It comes in a small thing. So, anyways, that's just like my one. If I could share anything, it's like it's a life game changer. Hey, I just had a general question about like water levels across Vermont. So I feel like this is maybe something not just necessarily tick, but just generally, stream health. Because last year when we did our release, we do it in the Charles Brown Brook. It's a great brook for trout. But like at the time we released early June, there was just like a trickle coming down and there's barely any pools. Like it's mid-April right now. Like I've already been mountain biking because the trails are completely bone dry. And in April, they usually are not. So anybody in the conversation here, I'm curious to hear what's the outlook on when June 1st I go out there, is there we're using these smaller tributaries for our trout release. What's the outlook for cold water ecology and stream health this year compared to last? We're not in a drought, I don't think, but I'll leave it at that. I'd be curious to your conversation around that. Thanks.
Well, I think much of the northern part of the state spent a lot of last year in drought. It was somewhat better in the southern part of the state and certainly in the southwest part of the state. But yeah, I guess I'm no scientist, but this seems to me to be sort of a early warning systems of climate change related differences that are going to be more common in our future. Who has an opinion about that?
We've had like 8 years now where at the beginning of the water year in October, we've been either abnormally dry or moderate drought. And this is just in the last few weeks. So you can check the Vermont Drought Monitor. It has a nice little easy to read map that shows what part of the state are in abnormally dry or drought conditions. And there's also something called USGS Water Watch, where you can check the gauge levels. But it definitely, we were talking before you came, Matt, that our first water quality sampling date at the end of May last year had 80 degrees on the main stem of the White at 9 o'clock in the morning, and the water levels were incredibly low. We're out of that temporarily right now, but we did not have a deep snowpack, and it's all going to be dependent on rain in the next month.
I'll take this opportunity to plug something that our State Council for Trout Unlimited has been working on. There's a bill H-466, which is in the Senate at present, and the point of it is twofold. One is to register water withdrawals above a certain level, not to control or restrict those, but to try to find out how much of it is taking place. And this is being done by farmers, in particular, probably ski areas, golf courses, and others. And the other part of the bill is to get a handle on what are called interbasin water transfers. So when the Tycho ski area imports water from the eastern slope of the Green Mountains out of the Ottaquechee River, that would qualify as an interbasin transfer because the Ottaquechee is part of the Connecticut watershed and the Otter Creek is part of the Champlain watershed. So both of those bills, or both of those elements of the bill, seem particularly necessary now because of the kind of concerns that we're talking about, Matt. If the water is already too low, pulling 20,000 gallons a day out of it for your hemp farm is probably not going to improve the situation. If you have any state senators who are interested in these matters, you may want to reach out to them and tell them to support this bill.
Matt,
Yeah, so one of the things that I think I'm going to encourage teachers to think about next year is to move up release days to mid-May till no later than late May, probably that before Memorial Day, just to kind of guard against this. It's nice to think that April's weather will somewhat continue into May and stay cool and rainy. But I think waiting till June, I think it has its advantages in terms of the teaching cycle and sort of making sure that everything gets kind of wrapped up. But in terms of, a little healthier water situation in the stream, I think might be, better to do mid-May to late May.
And I
Matt,
would
if
add
we
that
run into issues, I don't know if it would be possible for you to talk to Montshire and get, on Bloodbrook closer to the lagoon there, going in the before it empties into the Connecticut there might be, if we start to get into low water, might be a better release area.
Yeah, let's stay in touch and as the season develops. I was going to mention one other thing, and that is that to some extent it depends on the details. So Kim is very close to the Neshabie River, where it flows through a fairly deep canyon that's with a lot of canopy coverage that's going to keep the water pretty cool, at least under the reasonable circumstances. Corey is in a situation where I think the tributary that she's thinking about is more or less out in the open. And I don't believe it has a lot of canopy coverage. That's the kind of stream that's going to be hit hardest by a drought or by a spell of unusually warm weather. So think about the details of what you're considering as a release site. You might have options available to you that are better protected against some of these climate change conditions as opposed to others.
Tori, do you have, you're thinking you're gonna put kids in the bus anyway, regardless of where you go?
No, I was not thinking that because we are right on, like the nature trail goes, the Cross Vermont Trail / our nature trail goes right along the Wells River.
It does,
In
okay.
a lot of places. And then the stream that I was thinking of it like right where it meets the Wells River is very easily accessible to us. But I mean, I have to do some more looking because I don't know. And it's hard to tell, like you said, with the water levels, what now versus later. But yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like, I was just looking at a map and I was wondering if you had access to the Wells River right in back of school, so.
Yeah, we have like a really great trail that goes around, and then also the stream that I was thinking of is we could manage to get there. My kids would have no problem.
And I think Pete Emerson expressed some interest in helping out with that. Did he not? Maybe
I don't know.
I'm getting him confused with someone else.
It doesn't sound familiar.
He is Clark, is he a Fish and Wildlife employee?
Yeah, he's a fisheries biologist. I think he was looking at the elementary school in Sheffield. That was the school he was.
I see. Other topics, concerns, questions?
In the past, as I recall, we had to check with Fish and Wildlife to make sure that the streams we were considering releasing fish into approved. Is that still the case?
No.
Oh,
Since they started giving us triploid eggs, they're no longer as concerned about that. They do want to know where we release them after the fact, but they don't need to approve them before the fact. So we started out talking about some of the logistics related to release day, like having a aerated cooler and ice packs and that sort of thing. I believe there's a set of instructions for modifying a cooler for this purpose on our website, and I'll confirm that that's there and send you a link to it. Can anyone think of any other? I'll also send you something about that wonderful book, Trout Are Made of Trees, that Kim mentioned. Other resources or ideas that we should be sharing with each other?
go if you don't
Matt?
mind. This is kind of maybe, Tori, I know I came in late, but I know you said this is your first year. Would you like would you like me to PDF in the chat here, like what our schedule looks like for a trout release day or the 12 study? Like, do you want information like that? Would you like?
I'm open to it. I was looking at all the resources, and just because I wasn't planning on getting a bus, I just have not really worried about it yet, since I know
Okay.
I can get to the water. That's totally fine. Or I'll send you my email in the chat. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds great. And it's just a couple docs, but it's what I base
Yeah.
the day on, and maybe it's some place to wiggle around with. So, all right,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I've kind of lost track of who's got how many kids, but if you have a manageable number, and that depends a little bit on how well behaved your kids are and whether you have any teaching assistants, but that might be something in the range of 8 to 10, as opposed to, did you mention 45?
I did.
Yeah, somebody did.
I
And
did. Yeah.
Once you get into numbers of that sort, I think you need to begin considering having different stations.
Yes.
So that you can move the kids in manageable size groups under adult supervision, from one station to another, so that you don't overwhelm any one particular station, and so that the person leading that activity can productively work with the kids. I've been to quite a few release days that look like that. The video online that particularly comes to mind is the Mary Hogan School video in Middlebury. And Steve Flint, who is no longer in a position that allows him to do trout in the classroom, did some wonderful release days with large groups, probably in his case, at least something in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 kids. But he was kind of like, an impresario. He had all of these stations set up ahead of time. He had recruited volunteers to operate each of the stations. And then he had recruited other volunteers to kind of be the chaperones who took the kids on, okay, it's 11:15, now it's time to go to the water testing station. It takes more work to have a productive release day with a large group of kids, but it can be done very nicely, especially if you can get the volunteers. Matt?
All right, I have one more, just little thing. I kind of worked with this through Rob Kramer. And, but if anybody's ever at the Bonshire, we, last year they did some fish sitting for us, the year that our trout were didn't do well at all, but they sat our fish for a while. So this year Lorenzo's not participating, but they did ask, we've got quite a few trout. So we're donating like 15 trout or so to their exhibit, because they're out of brookies in their exhibit. So in the next year, if you go to the Monshire, those will be Those will be tick trout at the Mon.
Very
Show. So
cool.
that's it.
That's very cool. I'll make a special trip. Anything else? It's 5 of 5. All right, I will, you probably noticed I forgot to record this for the first few minutes, but I have been recording it since then. I will send you a link. I'll send everybody a link, including the people who said they wanted to attend but couldn't. And thank you very much for showing up. Appreciate both the teachers and the volunteers who gave us their time this afternoon.
Thanks very
See you.
much.
Stay well.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank
Joe.
you, Joe.
Thanks,
You're
Joe.
welcome.
Thank you.